Welcome back, YouTube fans. BigGunner81 here. So today's video is going to be a follow-up about this rifle right here and the issues I had with the trigger resetting. First off, before we begin, as always, this rifle has been safety checked. No cartridges in the chamber as indicated by the chamber flag, and no magazine in the mag well. Plus, we have the safety on too. Anyhow, so if you watched my first video about this rifle, originally after I built it, it was working perfectly fine. I got a bunch of rounds through it. I don't know the exact round count. I want to say a couple hundred rounds through it, which for some people is kind of amazing for an ATI OMNI polymer lower. But anyhow, mine has been holding up so far. Knock on some aluminum here or whatever. So I'll show you a close-up of what I kind of found the problem to be and what I did to remedy it. I didn't have to take anything apart to fix this problem, and I headed out at the range, and I'll show you a video after we kind of take a look inside of what was going on and show you how it functioned afterwards. Okay, so I just want to kind of explain a little bit of basically what I did to fix this problem here. So as we were talking about before in the last video about how the disconnector wouldn't disengage from the hammer when you release the trigger, what I was finding when I was looking at this was the 2 points of contact here, the disconnector here and the hammer. It's kind of hard to see on the camera here because it's very small parts, and on the tip right here on the hammer, they were basically very tight. When you were holding these down, I'm sorry, when you were running the hammer back here, you can kind of see how close that is. I mean, there's almost no gap between the two. And before, there was such a tight gap that basically, when you go to fire it, and you're holding the trigger down, and the bolt cycles, and the hammer goes back, engages the disconnector, which it's supposed to do. When you release the hammer, when you release the trigger, the hammer would stay still connected to the disconnector. The disconnector wouldn't release from it. So I basically just took a piece of fine grit sandpaper, and without taking any of these parts apart even, just went over this tip just real lightly, and over the tip of the disconnector real lightly, just to kind of smooth them a little bit, and just give just enough tolerance there. And so we're going to go test it out at the range, and we'll show you what happens with that. So. As you can see, the rifle's working perfectly fine, and you saw kind of what I did to it in the little close-up video there. I basically just cleaned up the 2 contact points between the hammer and the disconnector. If you're having a similar issue with your rifle, you may want to talk to a gunsmith. Don't necessarily follow what I did to fix mine, because it may not work for you. So anything you see in this video is try at your own risk. Firearms can be very dangerous. This fix was done at my own risk, so definitely be very careful with what you're doing. If you don't have a good idea or a good amount of experience with it, you may want to go talk to a gunsmith or whatever about it, and, or talk to at least somebody that has had this experience with it. Anyhow, as you saw, all I basically did was just use a little bit of fine grit sandpaper between the 2 contact points, clean them up, and seems to be solved now. My thought behind why this happened, and again, after I built this rifle, it functioned perfectly fine, no issues with it. My thought is maybe after all the components kind of got broken in, that the hammer and disconnector kind of got just enough closer together that there was just a tolerance issue there. Because again, this was a very, very slight amount that was just enough to catch each other. I don't see any reason as to why the pins will be bent or anything with the hammer or the trigger assembly or anything like that. Rifle wasn't abused, nothing was out of place with it. I've got anti-walk, anti-rotation, pins on here actually. So I don't see any reason as to why they would move, but I could see where maybe a little bit of wear occurred just through usage of putting a few hundred rounds, again that's a guess, through this rifle, and it was just enough of interference there that was causing this issue. So just putting a little bit of light sandpaper to it and not really removing much material at all, and just basically polishing up the two tips seemed to solve it for me. But that's my story, and again, it's working out great. I'm very happy, and for you guys out there, go out and have some fun. Go shoot!